Greetings, dear friends, fellow programmers, and those aspiring to be. Before we begin with this video, I would like to ask you for a favor. I would like you to kiss your confusion about var, let, and const keywords goodbye. Because after watching this video and sticking to its end, I'm sure you will be able to do just that. Sounds interesting? Well, sit tight and enjoy the ride. So today, as you heard, we are taking a deep dive into crucial keywords of JavaScript. Those are the ones you will be using all the time, because every time you want to create a variable, you will have to do some mental gymnastics to pick the right type of a variable you want to create. So you will have var, let, and const at your disposal. And you, as a developer, need to be aware of the differences between them, and that way be aware which one is the best choice for all the certain and specific situations in your coding career. And also, just to give you a heads up, this is another one of those very commonly seen questions on job interviews. So even bigger reason to sit down and enjoy the ride. I think the easiest way to master this is to take a few easy to understand and simple examples and go through the motion in action. Let's go! First up, let's talk about var keyword. And this is the default old approach that everyone was using since the beginning of time when it comes to JavaScript. Because up until ECMAScript 6, var was the only keyword you could use to instantiate a new variable. So this part right here is how a declaration of a variable would look like by utilizing var keyword. But it has a lot of quirks and features you definitely need to be aware of in order not to break code and consistently be in a lot of pain. Now, the example I took here is exactly the same example I used in the previous video where we spoke about variable hoisting, just to show you one of those quirky things you need to be aware when it comes to var declaration of variables. So this right here is going to be split into two main parts. The first one is variable definition, which is going to be hoisted to the top of the global scope. And the second part is going to be value assignment, which is going to stay right here. Which is why when we run this piece of code, we will first get undefined right here, and then the value we assigned right here. So this is the result of hoisting of variables in JavaScript. And this applies only to using var as a keyword. And I know that it might be intuitive to people who are not so experienced with JavaScript that compiler would throw an error in this case, because you are trying to reference a variable that still was not created at this point right here. And in most languages, that would exactly be the case, but not JavaScript. Now, let me show you another example. So, in this simple example, we have declared a variable called x and assigned a value to it. And then we have a block scope created inside of this function scope called test_var. And inside of this block scope, we are trying to instantiate a new variable called x again. But that is not how things work. And this right here is just going to assign the value 2 to the variable x that we defined here. So when we console log here, we are going to get 2, which is expected. But when we try to do it here, we're again going to get result 2, which is counterintuitive, because when you think about it, we wanted to create a new variable here and keep it within this block scope. But that is not how things work in JavaScript while working with var keyword. And this situation right here would be the perfect example where you would like to use let keyword instead. Because if I was using let keyword here and here, we would not experience this issue at all. As you can see, we are printing 2 right here and 1 here. That is because we are creating a new block scope within our if statement, and this x variable is not the same variable as this one. So that is why we're receiving the expected results. And when we have seen this in action, it is time to discuss what is the main difference between let and var keywords. And the main difference is basically in their scope, because let is a block scoped variable while var is a function scoped variable. So you have to be aware of this fact, because we experienced a very significant issue. We would overshadow the value of our variable x by not knowing the fact that it would not be creating a separate variable within block scope of if statement. And with var, it is not the case. It would work as we expected. So that is the reason why JavaScript developers created let and const keywords and introduced them in ECMAScript 6 instance of JavaScript. So that is one difference between those. And the second difference is the fact that let and const variables are still going to be affected by hoisting, but with a different kind of hoisting. They will be hoisted, but they will be moved to an area called temporal dead zone, where if you invoke those variables before you have assigned a value to them, compiler will throw an error and it will break your code. So it is not allowed action when compared to var, where it is completely fine to do just that. They will be moved and hoisted to the top without assigned value. When you reference the variable, you will just see undefined as a value of that variable and nothing will break. And finally, we are supposed to cover const keyword, which is basically exactly the same as let keyword. It's still block scoped variable. All the rules that apply to let keyword apply to const keyword, with a single difference that const keyword indicates that variable defined with it is immutable, which means that its value cannot be reassigned. Once you have assigned a value to a variable defined with const keyword, you can no longer change it, and when you do try to do that, compiler will throw type error at you. So let me show you with an example what is going to happen when we create a variable called a with a number assigned to it, and then we'll log the value, and everything works as expected, of course. We log 5, but after I try to reassign a new value to variable a, everything explodes and we get type error as I promised. So if I were to change this to let, everything should be working as expected, and it is. And now that we have that understanding, I would like to cover one additional quirk about const keyword, which I personally did not understand initially while learning about let and const keywords. So I would like to share this experience with you so you would not have to struggle the same way I did. And this quirk I'm talking about is the fact that you are not allowed to directly assign a new value to a variable instantiated with const keyword, but you can change its properties. So you can invoke methods, you can change values of properties of variables that were created by using const keyword. So when you create an object in JavaScript that is of type const and you adjust some of its properties, you will not get complaints from compiler. It's allowed. And also, while you're working with arrays, for example, and you push a new item to that array, it's again perfectly fine. And the reasoning behind it is because you are not changing the reference that is stored in a variable. You are just changing the value that is being referenced on the heap memory. So within your variable, you are keeping a reference that is not being changed and updated. You are just changing the values that are being stored in memory on the heap, which are being referenced by that variable. Which is why I've prepared another example to show you how it works. So as you can see here, we are creating a const person, which contains two properties, name and age. And when we assign a new value for age property and we try to log it, everything works perfectly fine. we just log 31, which is the updated value. On the other hand, if I were to try to do this and assign a new object to a person object, I would be trying to update the reference that this variable is pointing to, and that is going to break the code and throw type error at us. So that is not allowed. But this right here is perfectly fine. And me personally struggled to see this coming, and I was constantly using let keyword when I did not have to. So I do not want you to make the same mistake, and you will be able to skyrocket your understanding way quicker. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed this video because I think it was really essential to understand these concepts and main differences between these keywords. And if you are understanding them and have mastered this concept, you are on a great road to success when it comes to JavaScript. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would like to kindly invite you to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss another upload. Until the next video, thank you for watching and happy coding!